Now, the falcons we work with is a gyrfalcon, which is resident in the north, not entirely the Arctic, but Arctic and a little south all the year. And the peregrine falcon, which comes to the Arctic in summer and breeds there and then migrates far away to the tropics usually over winter. Now, the gyrfalcon is largely stable around the Arctic, but it fluctuates a lot because it's dependent on local resources, which is ptarmigan and other species that is dealt with in the CBMP. In some areas they are cycling, and others they're not, because they have alternative prey. Now, this is the first time we kind of stumble upon that when we are comparing across the Arctic, and we want to explore that further. When it comes to the peregrine, that has a special story because that species in particular was one that was very much affected by DDT and other pesticides introduced around 1945 or 50. So in much of the north, not very much in the Arctic, but much of the north, the peregrine were completely eradicated. It had effects in the Arctic as well, but not everywhere. Nevertheless, what we see is a population increase in the peregrine falcons in many sites, not all, and now leveling out at the sort of the normal level again. So we're seeing like a normal population in many areas. The interesting thing is that some of the northernmost populations probably just avoided a serious decline because they had access to clean food in the summer. This is not like proof, but what we are expecting is the reason. They were affected, but just above the threshold of real population crash. So it became like a sensor for the environment. And that is still the case in the Arctic. We are seeing that the peregrine is now accumulating new substances we didn't expect. The most important or famous case is the brominated flame retardants, which is material we use in furniture or in electronics to prevent it from setting on fire. A very important function. But it's increasing, and we don't quite know the effects in birds or in man. We also see now that in some of these populations now, the breeding season starts earlier, just about a week or two, but enough to be most likely reflecting the earlier spring I mentioned earlier, that is verified by many sources, including the remote sensing. When it comes to the falcons, there's nothing that keeps me up at night, except that we are seeing that there is a lot of variation in the weather, which goes up and down. So the variation is increasing. And we can see there's effect at least on the peregrine falcon. I would say that the falcons are quite sturdy species. They can handle weather differences. So it may not be a drastic impact on them directly, but there may be some impact in certain populations that we cannot foresee. It doesn't keep me up at night. I would say it's more the general picture of change in the Arctic, the speed of it, and the implications for mankind, and the implications for how the Arctic zones are being pushed forward. Seeing the high Arctic being pushed so far north that some of the ecosystem components up there may have nowhere to go at the end. This is probably the most worrying thing for me.